Companies have been filing for bankruptcies at a record rate. We are at a 15-year high. It is even worse than in the pandemic. And what am I talking about? These companies that are filing for bankruptcies aren't just restructuring, because we all seen American Airlines go bankrupt, Spirit, they restructure, and they keep on going. No, we're seeing liquidations. And it is not just one sector, it is literally all of them. It is Red Lobster, it is Big Lots, it is True Value Hardware, it is Flooring Lumber Liquidators, it is Rite Aid. And when these major companies aren't just restructuring, no, they're closing down and saying, nah, we are done. There is trouble in paradise. And I've asked you guys in a poll, how much would you spend on a hamburger? And this was a broader test for me to see how much are you guys willing to spend on something that has a cost to it, but it is not defined for everybody. Some might say, $5. Some might say $20. Some might say 25 plus, because depending on where you go, a hamburger costs $26 or $28 or $15. And I've asked you guys, how much would you pay before walking away? 30% said less than $10. 35% said $12 to $15. And 14% said, I'm okay spending between $16 and $20. And 20% said, I've stopped eating out completely. And why did I ask this question? It is because to do business in the US has gotten so expensive that you almost need to charge this much money, about $20 a burger, for you to generate a profit. And when you're trying to generate a profit and you're like, okay, I'm trying to make a profit because rents are so high, insurance costs so high, we now know that 86% of you guys are just not having it. And when I look at the comments, if you go to Burger King, the Texas Whopper sandwich is $14, meals and combos around $19. And we're looking at people, depends on the quality. I rarely eat food that I can't cook. And so you're seeing these only burgers and fries, no soft drinks, because these soft drinks are so expensive. Then one of my channel members was like, depends. If I've worked very hard all week, I can reward myself. But McDonald's burger, Wendy's, $12 is too much. Somebody said, I'll pay $16 to $20 for a gourmet 1/3 pound bacon cheeseburger, with all that fixing, brioche buns, bottomless fries, drinks, free refills in a dine-in restaurant. And so when you're looking at these places like Buffalo Wild Wings, and this is corporate owned, right? But we're seeing other, like Rocco's Pizza, we're seeing all these other ones, they've been going out of business at a record rate. And the data that I've pulled from you guys is the proof. 86% of viewers refuse to pay these corporate prices. The corporations build business model on idea that you would pay $18 for a burger or $50 for some cheap decor like Home Goods and all these other ones. And now we're seeing the economy slip. We're seeing bankruptcies filing rising. People think unemployment is low. They're looking at the wrong numbers. So Big Lot is losing roughly 300 to 500 stores. Average retail store, 15 to 20 employees. Calculation that 6 to 10,000 jobs gone completely. And now let's multiply TGF Friday 50 location, Rite Aid closing, LL Flooring liquidators, and all these other jobs, and you can then kind of get a number how things are going. These were the backup jobs. If you lost your corporate career, you could work retail. The backup jobs are gone. So let's look at some of these numbers from another channel.
Breaking companies going bankrupt are through the roof. Over 700 companies have filed for bankruptcy this year alone, and that's 30% higher than the average over the past decade. This is the most in 15 years since the wake of the Great Recession. In fact, it's already much worse than 2020 during the lockdown, and we still have several weeks to go in 2025. What does all this tell you? It's an indicator of a recession. Now, of course, they say our economy is booming thanks to all the investment in AI. But when you look past that, a lot of companies are struggling. They're struggling with higher costs and they're struggling with consumers not buying as much. And that has translated into this high watermark of bankruptcies, more than we've seen in 15 years. As a matter of fact, bankruptcies this year are so high, it's about a third higher than the average bankruptcies we've seen over the last 13 years. So, to all the people who keep insisting that the economy is now booming or just about to turn around, you just made the D3.
So yeah, so we're looking at it, and the argument is it's not just the cashier who loses the job. Bankruptcy kills the suppliers also. So you see a ripple effects. When Red Lobster fails, the shrimp supplier, massive unpaid invoices, they will have to eat the cost, or then they are out of business. When True Value fails, trucking companies that moves the hardware loses huge contracts. That means truck drivers are impacted. When Big Lots closes, the commercial cleaners, HVAC repair guys, they lose major clients. Corporate bankruptcies trigger 5 small business bankruptcies. So this is data backed up. So if one of these big retailers says I'm done, that means small other companies that had contracts with him are just gone. And this is what I'm telling you. And this is why I asked in my poll, would you pay $26 per burger or 20 plus? Because it almost costs that much to just stay afloat. And let's take my yogurt store for an example. During the COVID era, where I've leased one right before COVID started, frozen yogurt store, and rent was, I think, $2,800. Just electricity alone was $800. So you had $3,500 with just that. Then you had all these other fees and nickel and diamond stuff that was going on. So you had about $5,000 worth of fees, where you just had to make 5 grand every month just to break even. So 60 grand a year just to pay that. Then rent went up every year, insurance went up. And so that is just another indicator, and distinguishes between corporate and franchises. And multiple Burger Kings that were franchised, like Tom King, filed for bankruptcy lately. Unemployment is just gonna start ticking up. And if you're like, God, this isn't that bad, you need to go see. You can test it yourself, send out some applications, see who's hiring, ask around town, see if your local Burger King's hiring. We're right here, and we are gonna check if local Burger King is hiring. Normally they have signs out, but it does not look like it. And so when the data shows that bankruptcies are up and they're not hiring, right here in front of Burger King, no hiring signs. And that means that there is stress in the system. And you've seen the videos of these corporate bankruptcies and these layoffs. They don't give you 2 weeks filing. They'll just revoke your back, pay you 2 weeks severance, and then you are out.
So we all got fired from our jobs last night. 30 or more people were let go unceremoniously without notice right before Christmas. And trying really hard not to feel sorry for myself, but we're supposed to have my son's birthday party tonight and I'm not even helping to pay for it. Maybe buy something for my showcase. Donate if it's on your heart and you have the means. I donate my time all the time on here, and I never ask for anything in return, and I don't expect.
And in my other videos, I've shown you guys that corporate hiring over the holidays is down year over year. They're cutting hours instead of headcount so they don't have to pay severance. You aren't unemployed, but you're underemployed and starving. And this is another factor that we see in Las Vegas, in my hometown. We're seeing that a lot of gig workers, a lot of people that work in this town are just not getting the hours. And instead of letting them go and paying severance, they're just not asked to come back. Hey, sorry, we're not having you come back. Or if they are, it's an hour or two a week, just a minimum bare requirement, so they don't have to let you go and make this whole situation worse. But in 2026, I'm predicting that we're going to see way more liquidators. We're going to see way more stuff getting sold. We're seeing businesses not come back because rent is so expensive. And across the street, I've shown you in one of these shopping centers, a 1,300 square foot rental goes about $5,000. And my doc roomer that I used to use all the time said, I cannot do this. It is just too expensive. Labor, insurance, rent, electricity. So they said, I'm just gonna do it out of my garage because I can't keep paying these prices. I would require one dog groomer for just rent, and it is getting absolutely ridiculous. But it's not just that he has a problem, it's also that franchisee, the person that signs up and says, I want to open up a shop under your franchise. And so let's look at this video of her talking about how she's like, I'm done, I just closed it, and now I might have to be looking for a job.
It's been 9 weeks since we lost it all: the franchise, the storefront, and the dream. This is part 1 of our story. We're sharing everything: what we learned, what we regret, and what we'll never do again. 3 years ago, we invested everything that we owned. We picked up and moved across country, and we bought into a franchise that failed us. And we're here to talk about it. For those that don't know, I was a franchisee, which means I didn't own the entire company. I owned one location. If you haven't seen our viral video about our business closing, go back a few and you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Let me start off by saying we are not new to this. We have over 20 years experience as entrepreneurs. We did our research, we followed the rules, we trusted the process. We fought to stay open. We tried everything, but there was no support from the people that we bought into their brand and their business, people who sold us this dream. We were stuck, and closing, that just wasn't a business decision. This was personal, and it hurt. If you've ever dreamed of opening a business or a franchise, or if you just want the true story behind what happened, follow.
So you're seeing it. She's like, this is what happened. I try to stay open. I did my research. I have 20 years of experience, and that didn't save her. And it all comes down to sales. If you don't make enough sales, then you cannot stay open. People deal with toxic franchises all the time, like Subway, where you can open one across the street from each other and you can then say, you know what, I can just open up one. But if there's no money, people are really starting to hurt, and people are going to say, you know what, I can't keep doing this. Let me close down. I am done and I am out. But this just shows you the dire situation so many people are in. That is why I always tell people in my videos, you got to protect your downside. You got to learn about the market. You got to see. And sometimes it just needs more than luck. You need to have strategy. And in her videos, people were like, oh, franchises, that's a scam. You know, they're just nickel and diming you. They want their fair share on top of the revenue for marketing, advertisement purposes, and some other stuff, and that they're claiming that you need to pay for. And then all of a sudden, they just leave you high and dry when it comes time that you're like, hey, my store's not doing so well. Maybe we need to do some better marketing or some ads for my store. And they're going to be like, sorry, no can do. You took on the responsibility and you signed up. You gave us the money. After that, sorry, who are you again? And that is what is happening. And it has to do with sky high prices. And when 86% of my viewers are saying, I'm kind of overpaying high prices, then that will have ripple effects. So you can look on TikTok and you can check on YouTube. There are many people like this that share the same story, don't have the money that they thought they would from owning a franchise, or they didn't make enough to stay open. And yeah, this is the reality of so many Americans. And this is always what I say. You have to look at the numbers. You have to do your research. And when you're sitting in a car sales booth and you sign on that dotted line, just as you do when you sign a franchisee contract, your signature with your social, that's an easy process. Generating a revenue, covering the payments, that's the hard process. Shopping around, doing your research, test driving, seeing which location is, getting the store ready, that's fun. But then making the payments, getting the customer, running the day-to-day operation, that is where it is brutal. That is where the drain comes in. That is where exhaustion comes in. That is where failure comes to play. And a lot of people can't do it. It is extremely difficult to run a profitable business. And this is what I always say, just to stay in business for a customer isn't worth it. You need to make a profit. And in this time and age, in 2025, 2026, it is absolutely brutal. And this is why I always say have an emergency fund in place. If you have money set aside and you're in the stock market and you're in the top 8% that the economy is working, you're golden. But if you're out on the grind and you own one of these places in that shopping center and you're like, man, I don't have enough hours, or they're not giving me enough hours because sales are down, that is most likely because of high prices. Americans are tired of paying $30 for a burger. Americans cannot keep doing it, especially when there are more and more layoffs. And even some of my viewers messaged me and said, I'm going to get laid off in February, so I can't take big leaps. I cannot go on vacation. I cannot make a huge Christmas because how long is it going to take me in February to find the new job? 6 months, 8 months, a year? Or will I have something lined up by then? But these are the questions that average Americans are asking themselves. So now I'm asking you to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about all of this. And thank you for walking with me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.